Hello and welcome to the Elevate podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Nowakowski. I'm a salon owner, educator, mindset, and leadership coach that helps salon owners go from overwhelmed and burnt out to motivated and empowered. It is my mission to help you systemize your business, generate more profit, and create a career that you love. Join us every week to learn about the small shifts you can make to elevate your business regarding mindset, marketing, social media, business systems, and so much more. Wondering how I keep my business systemized? It's all thanks to Kajabi. Kajabi is a versatile platform that allows me to keep everything in one place, like my website, courses, forms, email marketing, my podcast, and so much more. It's easily mine and my team's favorite software for salon owners. To try Kajabi for yourself for 30 days, visit the link in the show notes. Welcome to this week's episode of the Elevate podcast. On this week's episode, we have Melody Justen, and we're going to talk all things structure, systems, and Starbucks. Today, Melody and I talked about client experience, acknowledging your team, and we also talked about using more corporate systems and structures to scale your business. I think that having all the freedoms need to be accompanied by actually having structure and accountability, and those are the things that we chat about today.
I really just have a passion for customer service in general within the salon. And I think a huge part of that stemmed from my first actual job working at Starbucks. And so, yeah, it was exciting for you to ask me to talk a little bit about it because I think it really was a big part of what brought me here today.
Okay, so let's take a moment and tell everyone who you are and what you do, and we'll go into today's topic.
Thank you for having me. I am Melody. I am a salon owner in Southeast Wisconsin. I have 2 salons, and I've owned my first salon for the last about 7 years and my second salon for about a year now. I am a mom, I am a wife, and I am a bridal hairstylist as well. And I enjoy education also. So, yeah.
I'm super excited about today's topic. So today we are going to be discussing pretty much how you've incorporated almost like Starbucks into your current business. And actually, one of the very first books I've ever read about business was The Starbucks Experience. And I think after I read that book, that's kind of one of the things that inspired me and really prompted my desire to have the opportunity to create my own client experience and my own salon. It was one of the things that kind of catapulted me into this journey that I've taken. So do you want to talk a little bit about your experience and some of the things that you've learned from actually working at Starbucks and some of your biggest takeaways?
A few of my main takeaways from working at Starbucks was that they were definitely focused 100% on the customer. And I don't know if I'm pretty sure they talk about it in the book about Starbucks being the third place. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, the third place is one of their things that they talk about very regularly. And it is the place that's outside of your home or your work. And it's that third place in your life that's going to give you some sort of comfort or peace. They wanted to create an experience that would be unique to other businesses out there because they wanted to have that home feel, which is why they make it very cozy. And I mean, even down to the smell, I know that when they first, had worked there when they first brought on breakfast sandwiches and things like that. And I remember that was like a big deal because they had to really figure out a way to do it well without you walking in and smelling sandwiches. They wanted it to smell like coffee. They wanted it to feel very, very homey. That was something that really stuck with me as far as having a consistently clean space, a consistently, comfortable, cozy space. Something that they do to make you feel comfortable is, I remember it was drilled in me from the beginning that you had 3 seconds to say hi when someone walked in the door. You couldn't pass on that. And sometimes I think, I've been to stores now where maybe they've been a little bit more relaxed on those things. And I think in my old spirit, I'm like, oh my goodness, you didn't say hi. Or, oh, that bathroom's not as clean as it used to be. But I know that that was something that they really do, focus on a lot. And it is something that has definitely drilled into me a bit more. And when I say drill, it's setting the standard for something very strongly, but not necessarily like yelling at me. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes you can take it that way, but
Yeah, I think every business needs to have standards, and those standards need to be enforced with great leadership. And I think that was another takeaway that I got from the book was not only are the customers important, but really creating a culture. And I'm not sure if it's still like this now, but really making sure that there was a good atmosphere and positive perks for the people that worked there as well. I think too, like going back to what you just shared, so many people just focus on the hair. And I think one of the things, like you had just touched on, that was an eye opener for me when it came to understanding like the overall experience is that everything is included in that experience, the atmosphere, the music, the way your space smells, the way your space looks, how clean your space is, how friendly your team is. These are all things that really are important to the client experience. And I think sometimes it gets overlooked. So, what is some other things that you took away from your experience from working at Starbucks?
So when you had just talked about, it's not only about the customer service, it is also about your team. And something that has somewhat stuck with me that I've honestly wanted to implement more into my business, especially as we've grown a team. I'm sure you've gone into Starbucks and you've seen them wearing pins, or they have little awards on their aprons. And all of those mean different things. They have, whether it is for certifications that they've done, or whether it's knowledgeable, like a coffee pin, all on based on like a class that they did or something like that. But then they also gave out Green Apron Awards, and Green Apron Awards were something that they would have these little cards that you would actually give to your team. So whether it was like the coworkers individually or from the leader or whoever, we all were able to give each other their cards. And they had ones like involved, for being involved and active in the community, or maybe, involved in the team, within that day. Or they had a knowledgeable one where if I would give a card to someone when I saw them sharing knowledge with, their customer. Or they had one that was welcoming, and they went above and beyond with welcoming a customer or welcoming a team member or something into their day. But it was really cool because what they would do is you would hand those cards, and then once you got a certain amount of those cards, then you could get a pin for that. And I've been thinking about that a lot, because I think sometimes a pin for some people may not mean a lot, but for some who don't necessarily have a lot of encouragement in their life from other people, that can mean like a whole lot. And so it was really a small way to make the team be able to recognize their team members around them. And also, as leaders, being able to look at like their staff and, be able to point out things that they're doing well. And so, yeah, that was definitely one of the best things I can think about as far as like working with the team and building that culture. And another thing was Starbucks, I think, was one of like the first places that I remember recognizing people's names, like putting the names on the cups, really being able to like take the moment to talk to a person. I mean, we were definitely taught to be fast and be diligent by the time you take your order, getting the coffee out. But I think it taught me that there is a lot you can do within 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. And being able to make connections in those small moments is something that I don't think I could have necessarily learned. I mean, I could have learned it in other places, but I'm thankful that I had learned it there.
It's so funny because that is one of like the main things that I hear from so many salon owners is how do I motivate my team?
Mm-hmm.
And, when we are studying leadership and we're really trying to figure out how to hold people accountable, I think one of the things that people forget about is really acknowledging your team members when they're doing the things that you want them to do and when they're doing things right. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, that's something that Starbucks definitely does. Like, yeah, so what? It's a pin, but it's really recognizing when people are doing what they need to do and going above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people like to be acknowledged. They like to be valued. They like to be acknowledged for doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we're in a leadership position, it's so easy to get focused on just the negative and the things that we need to get done. And it's easy to forget to, acknowledge people for actually doing what they need to do in our business. So I love the fact that not only can the managers hand things out like that, the team members were also able to acknowledge each other, which I
Yeah.
think is something that's really powerful too, because that really does build a great culture.
And we literally, like, I think every store did it different, but we had like a poster in the back and everyone had like a little envelope. So you saw when people would get them because you would just put them in there and you didn't even always have to hand it to them. You could put it in their envelope and then they could find it later, but it was nice because then you're able to see like, oh, people are handing them out. And then that kind of built it up because it was, of course, you feel good when you get one. So then you want to hand it out to someone else. And it was just like a small thing that made a huge difference. I don't know if they still do it. I'm assuming they probably do because I don't know why they would not, I guess. But it was definitely something I remember.
And it's so funny because I'm such a competitive person. Like I always want to be the best.
Yeah.
So like the fact that those things are acknowledged, I'd be like all on that, I'd be like, yes,
Yeah.
give me all the cards.
Yes.
So, and I think,
Exactly.
one of the things and one of the reasons why I wanted to chat today is, a lot of people, we were actually talking about this yesterday on our call, is a lot of people kind of are putting like a negative tone towards like corporate run like ways to do things inside of your business.
Yeah.
And I just want to say when people have structures and systems and these things in place, this is what allows them and gives them the ability to actually scale their business. There's a reason that there are Starbucks all over the world. There is a reason why they can charge, I think it's like up to $7 or $10 for a drink right now for a coffee, right? Because they do things right. And it's because they're consistent across the board with all of their stores. And that would not be possible without systems in place. So you do need structure inside of a business and you do need systems inside of a business to make it scalable so you can really, really grow. So what are some things that you've kind of implemented inside of your salon with your leadership and some systems? Because you just opened your second location, which is so exciting. And both locations are fully staffed, which is also very exciting because as we were talking about yesterday, this is a huge struggle for salon owners. And my friend and I were on a call yesterday with Cash Lawless for the Millionaire Hairstylist. And he was talking about staffing being the number one issue across many industries right now. Yeah. And he literally said in the call, if you don't have a problem with staffing, make sure that you message me because I need to talk to you. And in my mind, I thought of you. I was like, where's Melody? She should be on this call because she has a full staff. So there's something that you're doing that attributes to being able to fully staff the salons. And you just opened your second location, maybe like 4 or 5 months ago? How long has it been?
Last November.
Last November. Oh my gosh. So almost a year.
Almost a year.
Yes, almost a year. And you were pretty staffed when you opened. So what are some of the things that you think that you are implementing possibly that you brought over from your management position from Starbucks or that you're doing in order to really kind of solidify your success right now?
Okay. So before I fully answer that, and maybe some of this will kind of answer that as well, but I want to touch on the consistency in training and the consistency in corporate world, I guess. When you look, I remember having a conversation with someone and we were talking about, businesses like Starbucks or Chick-fil-A or Disney even, or even McDonald's. Like, I mean, any sort of like restaurant, I mean, any sort of business. I mean, even when you look at Coach or, any big brands out there, the number one thing that sets them to their standard is consistency. Everyone knows you can go to Starbucks and get the drink exactly how you want. I I worked for Starbucks for 6 years. I love Starbucks, but when I first started there, I actually was not even a coffee drinker, which is hilarious. And I think about all the times that I gave away free coffee and I never took it for myself, but I try so hard to support local as much as I can. And I do very often, but there is something to be said about the drinks not always being the same. And whenever I go to Starbucks or any brand that I love, I know that I'm going to get what I want. And I think about that. The thing is when you look at those businesses, they are always changing, but the main things that they do are always the same. And that is something that I like think about a lot, because I have changed my business. I've changed the decor. I've like done things differently in my business on a very regular basis. Like, I love change. I love changing my brand. I love whatever. But when it comes down to like the service that I give and what people come back for, it is always going to be the same. I'm always giving top quality service to my clients. I'm always giving them the same service every single time. They are like coming in like it's a brand new client every single time, even if I've had them for 10 years. But I can change everything around them, but the quality stays the same. And that's something that, Starbucks would always say is they're never going to compromise ethics or integrity in the name of profit. And I mean, it even comes down to, if even if I order the drink round, I think I did that the other day. I think I accidentally ordered the drink round. And I went in and I was like, you know what? I'm so sorry. I ordered this round. I wanted it iced. And they're like, no problem. You can keep that one. I'll give you a nice drink. And I think about that all the time in my business, because I think so many people are afraid of like giving things away, and they're afraid of, losing out on that profit. But sometimes we do need to do that. Like, sometimes we need to be able to admit to our clients or even our staff and our team that like, it's okay to make mistakes, and we're here to, pick up the pieces and help and, whatever, and provide that for them. And I think, those things can make a huge difference in the way people like look at your business. And yeah, I mean, I remember even down to like the hot coffee. I don't know if people know this, but we had to throw away hot coffee after 30 minutes. You know how much coffee was poured down the drain? Like, it's insane. Like, if it sat for more than 30 minutes, it was like, all right, pour it. That's why they have the timers always going off.
That's so crazy. Yeah. I think with going back to supporting small businesses, I try to do the same as well. But again, sometimes the quality and the consistency isn't there. So I think that's something that's really powerful. I was also like, when you were talking, I was just thinking about, isn't that why somebody like, not always, but like why a lot of people stay with their hairstylist is because they know that they get a consistent result. Could you imagine as a salon owner, if you had the, proper training in place and you had systems and you had structures on the way? Obviously, we're a very creative industry, but if you had baseline structures and systems for the way things that were done in your business, how client retention would be so much greater because of the consistencies across the board. And I think that's something that's so powerful. I think, not to bash anyone, but the previous coaching company that I worked for really kind of talked people out of having training and training programs. And I think that's doing a lot of salon owners disservice because one, new stylists need training. They just do, right? But it also creates inconsistency in your business. And when you have inconsistency in your business, you can't retain the clients like you want. So I think proper training is something that definitely should be really enhanced in people's salons because it's one of the things that it's going to retain clients. Also, another thing that you touch base on, which is also really, really important, is how you handle unhappy customers or just, just customers that maybe have a change of heart. Granted, like I know a lot of salon owners, their profit margins are already, kind of small, but the way that you handle these things in your business and how you fix things, I think is really powerful and is also as important as the service that you actually deliver. So I love that you shared that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had advice for people listening who have a salon because you are so successful in what you're doing, what are 3 tips that you would give them to start implementing today to kind of create consistency and success in their business?
I would say number 1, find a coach, and Patricia's a great one. Someone that can hold you accountable to things, I think, is definitely the number 1 thing. I mean, whenever I talk to anyone about my business, I think that always comes out of my mouth. I think it's the number 1 thing that will help drive success. I mean, you look at anyone successful, they most likely have some sort of coach or business consultant or something. But I think systems, honestly, I've had my business for 7 years, but I feel like I've spent every year of this 7 years working on my systems. I think I have, I keep thinking maybe one day it'll end. Like I'll have them all in place. And I think they're just always adapting, but it is becoming less and less of working on them consistently. And so I think getting those things in place. And I think that's where you have helped me in that too, because, when you are sharing with other people and building relationships with other people, you can kind of take other people's shortcuts, and then that builds momentum in that as well. And then I think a thing with hiring for myself is honestly just taking your time. Like, it is so easy for people to be like, just hire anyone, hire fast, like do whatever. But we've said no to a lot of people, and we've said yes to a lot of people. And we've had people that have come and have worked for us for a little bit and have left, or we've had to let go. Like, we are choosy about it. And I am grateful for the team that I have now, because I think we're getting better at hiring because we really see the team that we wanted to create. And now we're even more picky about it. And having standards that you have, like that you want to set for yourself and your team and your business, and like protecting your own peace on a day-to-day basis is really important. And so being able to choose people very particularly is definitely a big key to having a good business.
Yeah, I think people who have standards need and want to work for a business that has standards. Your high quality stylists are not going to work for a place that has low standards. They're just not. Yeah. And I think this is a commitment that I've made to myself this year too, is, people say hire fast, fire fast. When in reality, a lot of people have difficulties firing. They just struggle with this so much. So they hold on to people in their business because they're letting their emotions make the decision sometimes. So I think one of the things that I committed to myself this year too, is I'm not holding on to people that don't do what they need to do inside of my business and don't bring the business value, because I know that I'm going to, be reciprocating value to them. So they should do the same. I loved all of that. So
yeah, and something actually that you just made me think of is something that I have 2 managers, and they're amazing. Something that we've set for, I guess, a rule for us is if we've talked about something more than like 3 times, then we need to handle it. And so whether that comes down to our staff or something that maybe like we changed in the business, and it's like, if it becomes an issue, like with a client or something, if it's been talked about 3 times, we're like, okay, we have to change this, or we have to do something different, or we have to have that final conversation with someone. And I think that is something too, that I used to be someone, I'm a very verbal processor, and I used to be someone that could probably talk about something for months and months without making a decision. And when we started setting that rule, it helped us to really be like, okay, we like literally can't afford to spend the time talking about these things anymore. And so the more we've been doing that, the more time we have for like other things, which is great. Or we have time to be able to actually step back and enjoy life a little bit. And so, yeah, stop wasting time talking about things that don't need your energy.
I agree with that. Yeah. I think a 3-strike rule is great. And I think that's another thing too, is that people like verbally process for way too long. And then it ends up going past the opportunity to even have a conversation, right? Because if something happens and you're just like talking about it for a month or two, by the time that you need to actually approach that, sometimes the time has passed and it doesn't make sense. But I love that. Yeah. Tell everyone how they can find you and how they can get in contact with you if they'd like to do so.
Well, my Instagram handle is collectively Mel. And that is my personal Instagram, my hair Instagram. And then also my salon Instagram is Olive Grace Collective. And so our website's olivegracecollective.com. So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. And we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the Elevate podcast. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. The Elevate podcast is hosted by me, Patricia Nowakowski, and produced by Opulent Beauty Pro. To receive my free business guides, visit opulentbeautypro.com/free or click the link in the show notes. You can find me on Instagram at Opulent Beauty Pro or at Patricia_Nowakowski_OBS. If you love this show, please consider subscribing. See you next week.